If you're older and still masturbating regularly, I want to talk to you man to man. You've probably asked yourself, is this normal? Is it safe? Is it affecting my health? And if you haven't asked yet, I promise at some point you will. Because as we age, our bodies begin to shift in ways we didn't quite expect. Things that were once automatic start needing effort. Energy levels change. Recovery slows down. Even our drive, both sexual and life, can start to feel unpredictable. That's when we need to start asking better questions. Now, let's be honest, masturbation is a normal biological function. It's part of how we're wired, and for years, maybe even decades, it hasn't been a concern. But when we cross into our 40s, 50s, and beyond, we have to look at everything we do through a different lens. That includes our sexual habits. I'm not here to shame you. I'm not here to preach. I'm here to give you clarity. Because what you don't know can start working against you, quietly, from the inside. A lot of older men assume that if they can still masturbate, it means everything is fine. But that's not always true. You see, the body becomes more sensitive to patterns as we age. Your hormone levels, especially testosterone, start to naturally decline. That's normal. But over-masturbation can speed that process up. It can cause your testosterone to dip further, which can affect not just your libido, but your motivation, muscle tone, and even your ability to focus. Many men don't connect the dots. They just feel off, less driven, less sharp. And they think it's just aging, but in many cases, it's habits catching up to them. Habits like excessive self-stimulation. When you ejaculate frequently, your body needs time to rebuild energy. In younger years, that rebound is fast. But as you age, your system needs more recovery time. If you're draining that life force daily or even several times a week without balancing it with nutrition and rest and purpose, you're creating an energy deficit. That doesn't just affect your sex life, it affects your entire vitality, your immune system, your clarity, your confidence. Now let's talk prostate health. One of the biggest concerns for aging men is the prostate. Studies show that moderate ejaculation can actually be beneficial, helping to keep the prostate fluid circulating. But here's the nuance. Moderate is the key word. Going overboard, especially without a healthy lifestyle, can lead to inflammation, discomfort, or worse, long-term issues that sneak up on you silently. If you're sitting all day, eating poorly, and using masturbation as a form of stress relief or escapism, your prostate can suffer even more. And here's something you won't hear often. Masturbation becomes psychological as much as physical. It's easy to slip into a pattern of doing it not because you're aroused, but because you're lonely, bored, stressed, or avoiding something. That repeated cycle wires your brain into dependency. It dulls your hunger for life. It dulls your edge. So when you ask, is it bad to masturbate at my age? The better question is, why am I doing it? What's the intention behind it? Because when you're younger, your body drives the desire. When you're older, your mind does. And your mind needs discipline, not distraction. You are not weak for having urges, but you must be wise enough to master them. Because your energy is not unlimited anymore. Every release takes something from you, and the older you get, the more precious that something becomes. So if you're hearing this right now and thinking, this sounds like me, then take a moment and ask yourself, is this habit giving me life or slowly draining it? Because awareness is the first step toward power. Let's go a little deeper now, because one of the most overlooked parts of this conversation is the prostate. Most men don't really think about it until there's a problem, but if you're over 40, and especially if you're over 50, you need to understand how your daily habits, including masturbation, are affecting this small but powerful gland. The prostate is part of your reproductive system, and it plays a big role in producing the fluid that carries your sperm. Over time, this gland tends to enlarge, something called benign prostatic hyperplasia, or BPH. It's common. It happens to a lot of men. But just because it's common doesn't mean it's harmless. An enlarged prostate can cause a host of issues: difficulty urinating, frequent nighttime trips to the bathroom, a weak stream, even sexual performance problem. And a lot of men don't connect their habits with these symptoms. You might be thinking, well, doesn't masturbation help clear out the prostate? Isn't that good for me? The answer isn't black and white. Yes, there are studies showing that moderate ejaculation may support prostate health by keeping fluids moving and reducing the buildup of toxins. That's true, but moderation is key. There's a fine line between healthy release and compulsive overuse, and most men don't realize when they've crossed that line. See, when you're constantly stimulating yourself day after day, especially without physical exercise, proper hydration, and healthy nutrition, you're putting extra pressure on your prostate. You're also depleting the minerals and nutrients your body needs to support that organ. Zinc, for example, gets released every time you ejaculate. It's vital for prostate health. When it's drained consistently without being replenished, inflammation can set in, and chronic inflammation is a breeding ground for bigger problems down the road. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to wake you up because too many men ignore the early signs, the slight discomfort, the sluggish flow, the feeling like you haven't fully emptied your bladder. These signs aren't just getting older, they're your body speaking to you. And if you're still masturbating daily without listening, you're adding fuel to a fire that's already been lit. Let me put it another way. Your prostate is like the engine of a car that's been running for decades. It needs maintenance. It needs care. It can't be treated the same way it was in your 20s. And if you keep revving the engine without checking the oil, something will break down. There's also the pressure side of things, literally. Every time you stimulate yourself, there's muscle contraction, tension, and force applied to that whole pelvic region. Over time, and especially if done in awkward postures or prolonged sessions, this strain can aggravate the pelvic floor and contribute to prostate congestion. It's something most men never consider, but it matters. The physical act, the frequency, the environment, it all adds up. I've seen countless men come in thinking they had a prostate infection, only to find out they were simply overloading their system through repeated, unnecessary release. And once they reduced the frequency, supported their body, and built better daily habits, the symptoms faded. No pills, no procedures, just awareness and change. So ask yourself honestly, am I giving my body a chance to reset? Am I supporting my prostate with the care it deserves? Or am I unknowingly sabotaging it out of routine, boredom, or stress? Your prostate is trying to serve you. The question is, are you serving it back? So let's talk about something that doesn't get nearly enough attention: the emotional and mental impact of frequent masturbation, especially as you age, because this is where a lot of men silently suffer. And I'm telling you now, it's not just about your body anymore. As you get older, everything starts shifting inward. What used to be a simple physical release starts to affect your mindset, your energy, and even your sense of identity. When you're younger, you can go through these cycles and bounce back. Your hormones are strong, your motivation is high, and your body has enough resilience to carry you. But once you hit your 40s and beyond, things start to feel different. You may notice that after you masturbate, you feel drained, not just physically, but emotionally. Maybe you feel a little flat the rest of the day, unfocused, unmotivated. You think it's stress or aging, but it's often that you're slowly emptying your drive every time you give in to the habit. There's a connection between sexual energy and life force. Whether you believe in science, energy, or psychology, the result is the same. Frequent ejaculation without purpose starts to create emotional fatigue. It's like your brain and body are out of sync. You release dopamine when you masturbate, and in the moment, it feels like relief. But right after that peak, there's a drop, a crash. And for some men, especially those who are already dealing with stress, loneliness, or a lack of direction, that crash starts to stack up. You might find yourself chasing that high just to feel something. Not because you're actually aroused, but because it's become a coping mechanism, a habit, a way to fill time, avoid discomfort, or escape from real life. And that's where the danger begins. Because every time you reach for that false comfort, you reinforce a loop in your brain, a loop that tells you pleasure equals relief. That loop starts to override your hunger for achievement, discipline, and deeper connection. Some men will say, I don't feel like myself anymore, and they're right. They've traded long-term fulfillment for short-term comfort. They've dulled their edge without even realizing it. Masturbation, when done without intention, can rob you of your inner fire. It keeps you stuck in your head, disconnected from your body, and distracted from your purpose. I've seen men who were once full of ambition, drive, and clarity slowly become passive, unfocused, and emotionally numb. And in many of those cases, their sexual habits were the root. It wasn't that they lacked intelligence or strength. It was that they were slowly leaking their energy in places that gave nothing back. That kind of pattern becomes a silent trap, and if you're not aware of it, it will quietly pull you away from the man you're meant to be. This is especially important for men who feel isolated. Because when you're alone, it's easy to justify. You say, well, it doesn't hurt anyone, or it helps me sleep, or I'm not doing anything wrong. But deep down, you know when something has taken control of you. You know when it's no longer about pleasure, but about escape. And that's when it's time to take back your power. You need to protect your mind as fiercely as you protect your body, because your thoughts shape your reality. And when your mental energy is tied up in compulsive habits, you won't have enough left over to build the life you truly want. You won't have the hunger to chase your goals, connect deeply with others, or wake up excited about your day. That spark, your masculinity, your strength, your clarity, starts to fade. But here's the good news. That spark isn't gone. It's just buried. And the moment you choose to break the cycle, to create space instead of constantly filling it with quick hits of dopamine, that's the moment your fire starts coming back. You just have to decide you're done living small. Now that you've heard the truth about your body, your prostate, your mind, there's one more thing we need to talk about. And it's the most important part of this entire conversation. What do you do now? How do you take back control and start living with intention again? Because this isn't just about stopping a habit. It's about rediscovering what you were meant for. When you've been locked into a cycle for years, even decades, it's easy to forget how powerful you really are. You start to believe that this is just how life is now, a routine of going through the motions, numbing the edges, losing a little more drive each day. But that's not aging. That's disconnection. You've been leaking your energy in the wrong direction, and it's time to turn it around. You see, every time you choose not to give in to that urge, every time you say no to that moment of comfort, you say yes to something else. You say yes to strength. You say yes to clarity. You say yes to becoming the man you know you can still be. That discipline you build in private shows up in every part of your life, in your relationships, in your work, in your confidence, and it grows slowly at first, but it grows. I've watched men who thought they were too far gone reignite their spark just by making one decision: to stop being ruled by impulse and start being led by purpose. And purpose isn't some big, dramatic mission. It starts with small, consistent actions. Waking up and deciding, today I'm not going to give my power away. That's where it begins, and that decision builds momentum. You start to feel sharper, stronger. You look in the mirror and see a man who respects himself again. You don't need to be perfect. This isn't about guilt or shame. It's about rising above the version of you that's been stuck, because you know there's more in you. You've just been distracted, and now it's time to refocus. The goal is not just to stop a behavior. The goal is to fill the space that behavior was occupying with something that feeds you. Mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. When you take your energy back, you get to choose where it goes. Into your health, into your goals, into your relationships, into your legacy. This is especially true for older men. Because if you're still here, still breathing, still thinking about growth, then you still have a mission. You still have time to become stronger than you were yesterday. But time isn't guaranteed. And you can't afford to keep wasting it in patterns that give you nothing in return. You've already spent enough days running in circles. Now is the time to rise. And yes, there will be days when the urge comes back. That's okay. What matters is how you respond. What matters is that you remember who you are and why you're doing this. You're doing it because you want to walk through life with your chest out, your head high, and your energy full. You want to inspire others not just by what you say, but by the way you live. That kind of man doesn't let temporary urges pull him away from his mission. He leads himself first so he can lead others. So if you're still holding on to this habit because you think it's harmless, ask yourself, what would my life look like if I took that energy and put it into something greater? What kind of man would I become? Because that man is already in you. You just have to stop hiding from him.